My hope is that at the end of this presentation, it may inspire you to evaluate your current approach and see if there are areas of potential growth that you can explore. If you're just starting a program and in the exploration stage, this may be a model you could consider adapting to fit your needs. But really what we're trying to do is provide a look into how we integrate our crime analysts into the prosecution environment. So here's a look at the agenda of what I'm going to cover. I'm going to tell you about our analyst team, the model that we use, what's in our toolbox, and then I'll give you a deeper dive look at one of the strategic projects that Marissa mentioned in her presentation, what we call a risk profile. So about the team, we're currently comprised of 4 crime analysts and a senior crime analyst. The team partners with the investigative and prosecution teams that also make up collectively the crime strategies unit that Marissa described. Concurrently, all of our analysts operate as task force analysts with the Fusion Center, the NICRIC, which was birthed based upon the initial creation of CSU and it being staffed by Fusion Center analysts. So as we transitioned, it's been a great pleasure to be able to maintain that partnership as we've transitioned to being DA's office employees. Our crime analysts work both collaboratively on various projects and independently. Largely that depends on the nature of the assignment. We have a significant focus on gun-related crime and violence. We do weekly products sharing information related to that, which involves also triaging, looking for Al Capones, looking for the wolves, looking at where we can be impactful quickly if need be. We also are involved in analyzing NIBIN leads, the firearms relinquishment program. We do case support, and we also kind of serve as a connector with our law enforcement partners and other members of the DA's office. So now I want to talk about how our team got here. Before I talk about what we do, I want to talk about the path our team has taken to get to the crime strategies unit. Really what I want to illustrate is that there isn't one way to become a crime analyst. There's a lot of different ways to get here. Our team has a pretty diverse set of education experience, professional experience, and training that we all bring to the team. As you can see on the slide, we have members who have bachelor's degrees and master's degrees in the areas of business administration, criminal justice, and forensic science. Several of our members also have certificates in crime and intelligence analysis from some of the CSUs, the California State Universities operating here. In terms of prior experience, I myself have about 19 years of law enforcement experience in this county. I worked at a records department. I worked in a special operations unit with gangs and narcotics. And then now with the crime strategies unit. We have other members of the team who are Fusion Center analysts who also have extensive experience working in the legal system with the DA's office, animal control officers, Army squad leaders, IT backgrounds, a whole variety of things. And then in terms of training, we've had training in a lot of different areas, some of which I've put up here: strategic intelligence analysis, call detailed records analysis, open source, social media, link analysis, and so much more. I think what that does is it helps provide a really diverse background that when we are supporting these operations and data analysis projects, we have a variety of experience that we bring to the table that we can factor into to what we present and how we present it. So now that I've talked about how we all got here, I want to talk about our approach. We are a data-driven and intelligence-led unit. Collaboration is key, like I said, with our investigators and prosecutors, and also the law enforcement community that we support as well. It's really important that we develop those relationships. We focus on developing coordinated strategic solutions to the crime issues that we're addressing, and then we also partner in the tactical planning process. So our team wears a lot of different hats in this process, and I think it's important that we have that we touch a little bit of each thing so that we're involved in the process all the way through. It's not perfect, but we do our best. Now, in terms of our approach, what I want to lead off with is just kind of explaining some of the different types of analysis and the role of an analyst. I know that there's a lot of analysts on this call. There may be prosecutors and there may be new people that are just starting off. And so I want to just kind of talk on a really high level of the different types of analysis that are utilized in our field, and then talk about how here at the CSU we do them all. So crime analysis looks at patterns and trends by studying the offense elements. An example of this may be to look at a series of commercial burglaries. An analyst might look at the type of businesses targeted, time of day of week of each occurrence, the modus operandi, suspect descriptions, vehicle descriptions, and so on, to see if there's any useful information that can be distributed. On a high level, intelligence analysis tends to be more research focused. The intelligence cycle is widely used as a roadmap for collecting and processing data for analysis, as well as evaluating and packaging the info for dissemination. In terms of what guides that process, 28 CFR Part 23 is a federal guideline utilized by most intelligence units to establish the framework of operating principles for criminal intelligence systems and operations. I'm not going to delve too much into that for this training, but I just wanted to be sure to mention it. Analysts in this area are generally attached to various versions of intelligence units, which could be gangs, narcotics, other organized crime, maybe other examples, or a few examples. Another large area of use is in investigative analysis. This focuses on the study of facts and circumstances of a crime. Analysts in this area are sometimes embedded in an agency's investigative unit to work alongside detectives to assist with investigations such as robbery, homicide, burglary, assault, and so on. The model our team uses a combination of all of these, and then we layer that with the strategic lens. So strategic analysis is a solutions-oriented approach to look at the big picture. The goal is to demonstrate why you should care and offer a potential course of action where we might be impactful. This doesn't mean that we are telling everybody what to do all the time. It's merely a offering to put together based upon our knowledge and experience, the analysis of the issue to initiate a jumping off point for the strategic planning discussion and process. Now, it's quite common to see crime analysts create density maps or heat maps focusing on specific types of crime where it's happening. Maybe it's maybe you're looking at gun crime, homicides, shootings, a whole variety of things, burglaries. But integrating the strategic analysis into our workflow drives us to look beyond the dot. And looking beyond the dot, we're trying to answer the who, the what, the why, and the how. So looking at who, examples would be looking at who are the offenders, who are the victims, who are the other involved parties that we need to be aware of. What type of crime is occurring? Are there any similarities in MO or the targets? The where, you might say, well, that's the dots, and it's yes, that's the dots. But looking beyond that, looking at the specific locations, what can be said about the surrounding areas that might be impacting the crime? Are there changes in the development? Are there ongoing gang issues in the areas? A recent evolution of illegal encampments, underground nightclubs, illegal gambling shacks, and so on. What else is happening in that area that might be driving this? And then the why. Is there anything specific driving this type of crime? Again, you might explore gang rivalries. Is it a area of narcotic sales? Are there other physical environmental factors making the space vulnerable? Those are all things that you can consider in your evaluation. And then the how. That's where the strategic lens comes in. So for the how, there are frequently questions that we ask. How can we disrupt major crime issues impacting the community? How can we try to prevent future acts of violence? How can we hold the offenders accountable? And how can we disrupt the criminal activity of a crime group? Marissa gave you a great example of Catch 33. That's an example of answering that. How can we disrupt the criminal activity of a crime group? So we started off with several offenders on the radar. who were escalating in the severity and frequency of criminal activity. They had a documented association together by law enforcement in connection with that criminal activity. So in terms of what we specifically did as analysts to support that, again, it was looking at the people that they brought to the table, but also looking to identify if there are additional associates that maybe should have been on our radar as well. We determined if any had existing warrants, were on probation or parole with search clauses. We evaluated their criminal cases to look at the filed, unfiled, and recently rejected cases. And that was a combination of looking at DA's office data and also law enforcement data. When we were looking at their criminal cases, we're looking at should any cases be considered, should any of the filed cases be considered for vertical prosecution. For the recently rejected, as Marissa said, we're looking at why, not just were they rejected, but why were they rejected? Was it rejected for follow-up? Was it rejected for labs? Is there something that we can do or help push to get that issue resolved and to get a new packet submitted for review? Again, that could potentially lead to a new warrant for an offender. That's of concern. For the unfiled, that could come from the law enforcement data. So we're looking at anything where the offender was potentially a suspect and it looks like the case is pretty much ready to go, but we haven't yet received it at the DA's office for review. So we look at what elements need to be met to be able to get the case ready for referral to the DA's office for potential filing. Again, that could lead to a potential new warrant for that offender. And then once we're ready to move forward, we created or supported a tactical operation for apprehension. Again, it wasn't just the DA's office; it's with our law enforcement partners and all the members of our prosecution team. Again, investigators and prosecutors. So we look at the apprehension plan, and then also look at coordinating potentially probation and parole searches. And then we look at post-apprehension, what do we want to do? Are we considering high bail requests? Are we looking at search warrants for cell phones and so on? So analysts are involved in that process at every step of the way. And all of that is with the end goal in mind of getting these offenders off the streets, even if it's temporary, to address the question of how can we disrupt criminal activity of a crime group. Now let's shift gears a little bit, and we'll talk about what's in our toolbox to get this work accomplished. Brain power, collaboration, information access; those are vital components to our approach. Critical thinking skills; I feel like that's extremely important in how we function and how we do our work. Once we acquire data and information, being able to interpret, evaluate, and analyze it is essential to supporting the efforts to develop the strategic plan. We're looking at the broader picture to develop solutions. We want to identify what the end goal is and broadly think, creatively think, critically think about how to get there. What tools, what resources do we have? What tactics should we employ? And next is communication skills. Knowing your audience and what's important to them, I think, is key. The work that we do can support a variety of efforts, and our work regularly comes into contact with law enforcement officers at the patrol level, investigators in our office, probation, parole, prosecutors at both the and our office and federally as well. And then we also have federal agents who also attend our weekly meetings who are interested in what we are presenting. So the products that we develop and create will sometimes be designed to speak to each one of those groups. They all have a different role and responsibility, and part of our job is to understand what they respond to, what information do they need to be able to take action on their end. So we have to, have a broad understanding of how the law enforcement world works from the beginning all the way through. Second, I think database access is extremely important. I'll talk about some specific recommendations in just a moment, but I want to stress also that having access alone isn't enough. I'd encourage that if you are a newer analyst, developing a strong understanding of the capabilities and limitations of these systems is extremely helpful. You want to know what you can get from a system and what you can't get. Software applications are also important. Yes, we use a lot of Microsoft products in our work, but there are other tools that are out there that definitely help in this process, especially in this day and age with a lot of the data that's out there with regards to cell phones, social media, and so forth. I think it's important to learn what you need, why you need it, and once you get it, making sure that you're seeking out training so that you fully know how to utilize the tools as much as possible. So in terms of database resources, what I have up on the screen is not everything that you can tap into, but this is what I would recommend seeking out at the start if you can. So I've referenced the DA's office case management system. Hopefully, if you're with the prosecution's office, you have access to that information in your office. Our crime lab is a part of our DA's office, so we have access to their system as well. Law enforcement agency records. There are different ways. I know every community is structured a little bit differently. And so, how you can get that information can vary, but I think the key is to seek out how you can get access to that. We also look at the court records. We look at county criminal justice data. We're looking at arrests, different information bulletins that get passed through to our region. Data aggregators, probation records, parole records, those are also really helpful. And not just the records themselves, but even making sure that we have a partner in those departments that we can reach out to do the deeper dive, because sometimes what we can see from our view isn't the full view of what of information that's available. And then generally also criminal history, local, state, federal. Again, this isn't everything that you could gain access to, but I think if you're just getting started, this is what I would recommend pursuing. In terms of software resources, some of what's up on the screen is provided to us as part of our relationship with the Fusion Center. Like I mentioned earlier, and as Marissa mentioned, we're all task force analysts with the NCRIC, and so there's some benefits with regards to resources that we benefit from. Some of the tools up there on the screen are also provided by the DA's office. These are not all of the different applications that are available out there, but I think there's just some to consider. Again, at the top, looking at PowerPoint, Excel, OneNote, Visio, Publisher, Word, those are all Microsoft applications. They should be relatively easy to get access to in your area. GeoTime, CellHawk, PenLink, SEDEX, those are all for mapping call detail records. There are other tools again out there. These are just some of the ones that we're more familiar with. GeoTime Enterprise, again, is a database or an application to process large amounts of data sets. That's one that we have access to as well. Nighthawk is also similarly useful for social media records analysis. It can also do call detail records and tower dumps like some of these other tools. Analyst Notebook is, I think, kind of a broadly sought after tool, common for among most crime analysts for doing link analysis. And then .social is available free through Endicac. And then ArcGIS is widely used for crime mapping. Again, this is not a comprehensive list. I'm not endorsing any of these specifically, but these are just something to think about as you're exploring what your needs are. Now, in terms of how do we do it? We employ a variety of techniques to answer all of these questions. Database research exploitation, link analysis, crime mapping, geospatial analysis, temporal analysis, statistic analysis, tactical analysis, open source analysis. I'm not going to go into each one of these topics because I'm sure, as many of you know, there could be trainings on any one of these. But these are things that we are trained in. We look to employ to address whatever crime issue comes our way. Now, with regards to database research exploitation, that for me, I look at as the information hunt. We're trying to find the pieces of the puzzle to.
You have 5 minutes left.
Now, here are a few examples of some of the products that we formulate: timelines, link charts, information bulletins, strategic bulletins, maps, and such. For this next section, we're just going to talk about a specific strategic product that Marissa mentioned earlier, and this is the risk profile. So our team has evolved this over time, and its intention is to help our prosecutors. So you've heard us talk about a risk profile, and now you're asking, what is it? It's a strategic workup of a subject looking at documented activity to see if there is evidence of potential risk factors related to violence, weapons, narcotics, DV, gangs, and burglaries. You could structure this to add additional factors that are of concern based on whatever your area of focus is. That's what ours are currently set up for. And in terms of the next question, it might be like, well, how do you put it together? We do a status check of local criminal deferrals received by the DA's office. Again, we're looking at active cases, recently rejected, maybe closed cases. We're looking at notable restrictions, which may be, are they on probation or parole, court probation, a restrained person in a protective order, are they a prohibited person, all of those different things. We'll look at the criminal history, unfiled criminal activity, and then also check for publicly available information, including social media. And then the last question would be, well, how is it used? Again, one of the things we'll look at is, should the defendant's cases be vertically assigned? It can be used to support an argument for high bail or no bail. We'll identify rejected cases that can maybe be refiled if additional follow-up is done, and identify unfiled activity that can maybe be filed. And we want to determine if essentially a coordination of efforts may be needed or resources allocated to address those concerns. So here is an example of what the first page of our risk profile looks like. It'll have the subject's information, name, the DOB, the PFN, the person file number for our county, a mugshot, and then also information regarding their active case, usually what brought it to our attention. The section below that, it says CSU narrative. For me, that's the snapshot. This is what we really want them to focus on. If they're not going to look at anything else in this product, we want them to be able to get an idea of who this person is, what the concerns are. So we may look at generally what's gone on in their criminal activity. Has there been an escalation in any of their conduct? Is there anything that's alarming? Or they have any active wants? A whole variety of things. Second to that, we'll have information regarding the firearms and ammunition to see if they have any registered in the state of California. We have access to that information, that if someone purchases a firearm, it gets registered. We have access to that information. If they're purchasing ammunition, there are records that are collected, and we have access to that information. Again, we'll determine if they're a prohibited person and if they have any notable restrictions. That generally kind of goes on the first page. The following pages are the supporting actions for that CSU, the CSU narrative. So we'll provide summaries of the cases. The active cases are usually highlighted with red so that you can know really quickly what's going on. For any of the closed cases, we'll explain, was there a conviction? What were they sentenced to? For the rejections, why were they rejected? For the unfiled activity, where did it occur? What else do we need to know about this person? It'll include a brief synopsis of that as well. We will also include the publicly available information, so that could be pictures from their social media. And then we may also do a custom kind of analysis. This one was looking at days since last release. So this person over a 3-year period was in and out quite frequently. And so we thought it would be helpful to kind of show that progression. And then just some final thoughts. I think it's really important to build a diverse professional network, liaisoning with other analysts in your area, in the state, in the country, depending on what your needs are, but also your law enforcement partners. So your investigators, probation, parole, keep them in mind to develop relationships because that can be useful. Seek out training in a variety of areas from different instructors. Everybody has a nugget of information that can be helpful to you in your process, and that may resonate with your area. So I believe in being a forever student. I think it's important as an analyst to be curious and ask questions. That helps us frame our work and then also develop the plans of action or strategic recommendations. And then, as Marissa said before, for the prosecutors looking up from the file, same thing for the analyst, think creatively, look beyond what's right in front of you. And then lastly, these are very high stress jobs. And I say this to you as much as I say this to myself. Remember to take care of you along the way. It's important to find that work-life balance. And here is my contact information.